Hello, everybody. Melissa Simonson here with Amaze on Stream, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to today's guest, Jana Krekic. Jana, welcome.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. I'm so excited. So, Jana is one of my very good friends. I love her very much, and so I'm very excited to have her on this podcast because today we're going to talk not just about what she does, but more about who she is. And so I want to learn, Jana, really, I want to go way back. I want to talk about how you got started with entrepreneurship. So did that begin with like your parents? Did that begin, were they entrepreneurs? Tell me a little bit about the path that led you to entrepreneurship.
Sure. So it was nothing like it. None of my family members were entrepreneurs. My dad was sort of an entrepreneur for a short while, but then after that episode, he went back to working for someone else. But I would say that he was always the person in my family who would take risks and who would, be okay with something that my mom was not okay with. Like my mom was kind of old school, she would she worked in a bank on like a very high position, but she was like, well, if you find a good job, you should just stay there till you're retired. That was like my mom's mindset. So that, and my dad, as I said, like he went back to work for somebody else, but for that short amount of time, I think that he was really enjoying that adventure that he was just going in with the unknown and uncertainty and stuff like that. So I think that he was also the one who understood me better when I quit my job, because I was always part of a corporate world or like privately held companies, and I was enjoying that a lot, and I never thought of myself just like starting my own business. Like I was just like, I don't know, like just gonna work with somebody else and let's see what happens. But I never had like the idea of like, I never had like a lemonade stand when I was a kid, or I was like figuring things out how to earn money. I was just not like one of those kids. And I went to school and studied languages because that was my forte. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm good at. And before that, I played the piano. So like there's like nothing that would connect me to interpret. Why is that such a hard word?
I feel like you're not the only one that struggles with that.
I know, right? Till this day. So that kind of evolved like with my personality way later. And then I was working for this really big e-commerce. And then at that point, I kind of started like, thinking, because this e-commerce was like a private entity, and I was like, well, if this guy could do this, I'm pretty sure I could do something, I could pull it off in a similar way. And then I got interested in like, business schools and stuff like that. And then at that time I was in Chicago, and I remember I was like, checking the brochures from the Booth Business School. It's like top 3 business schools in the country. And I was like, well, how the hell do I get like $100,000 and pay for my, for my semester over there? But I was like really interested in like gathering information, like how to get started. And like, I didn't know anything about like, starting a business or, building like a global team or anything like it. But this is like the first spark of like, maybe I should do something on my own, which was not in my core. Like I was not built to be this person that can do everything. I was like being underconfident. I was not a risk taker. I would never change my life overnight. So I was just not like one of those people they tell you about, in the books. I was just kind of a regular 9-to-5 person. There was nothing too extraordinary about my abilities to do something extra. And then after like I've spent basically almost 8 years in the e-commerce company, and thanks to my ex-boss being an asshole he was, that kind of pushed me into quitting my job and just kind of going to the unknown world, being like, what the hell am I supposed to do with my life right now? And at that point I started like part-time teaching Norwegian, which I went to school for, to corporate clients. And I also spent a lot of time in Scandinavia, and like I was also basically like I was like basically native in both Danish and Norwegian. So that kind of helped me. There was like my intermezzo between like my corporate job and my future company. And I just kept on like having these teaching Norwegian to corporate clients, but it went on and on and on. I would literally teach for like 10 hours straight
Oh
like
my
repeating
goodness.
one thing after another, like 10 times I would, repeat the same lesson, like, and I remember like Lazar, my husband, he was in the living room and he would be, he would hang out in the living room because he also worked remote. And then he he remembered tons of Norwegian phrases and sentences because I kept like repeating them to infinity and beyond. And then he was like, at the end of the day, he would just ask me a question that I asked to my students. So, at that point, that kind of just, just started being ridiculous. And I was like, well, I am, again, a prisoner of something that I do not want to do. I was very passionate about teaching and I'm really passionate about working with people. But this was like, it was like an overload of that. I was just kind of burning out. And I was just like, you know what? I just need a break from teaching. And that's why I decided, like to kind of buy the domain name and everything that kind of pushed me into that direction.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So it sounds like it was a slow progression. Like maybe you felt a
Yeah.
little bit of that risk aversion that your mom maybe
Built
feels.
in me.
Yeah. And then you kind of got to see like, okay, these are my areas of strength and I can actually use them to make money. So you use them for teaching. And then it sounds like that's when you kind of came up with an idea of how you could actually turn that into something you wanted to do instead of doing it in a way that somebody else wanted you to. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I think I was 28. No, I think I was 30 at the time actually when I came up with my own like idea and everything. So, like, and now I see like so many different, kids and like Generation Z and all of these like kids like being 21 and making millions. And I'm like, oh my God, but when I like, when I think about it, like when I was 21, I was where I was and that could not have been different. And I'm not sorry, it's never late to start your own venture. I just think that, it took me too long to have the guts to quit my job, but whatever. I'm just really happy with
Right.
everything I've learned there. And I just wanted to mention one more thing, which really kind of almost pushed me back to the office. And that's like when I quit my job, as I said, like I had like full support from my dad. He was like, sure, like you should do something else. You were so miserable at your job and blah blah blah. But then like my mom, she cried and she didn't want to talk to me in like 2 months because she thought that I was wasting completely perfect job opportunity. I was having like insanely big salary for Serbian terms. And she was like, she thought I was an idiot. And then, that she was hoping that I should go back 9 to 5. Basically, and all of my friends, because a lot of my friends, they are lawyers, they're like in corporate, they're dentists, they're doctors. They don't understand the world of e-commerce.
Right.
So they were also like wondering for those 8 years, what the hell was I doing? What was actually my job? And then after I quit my job, everyone thought that this is just gonna be a phase, and I'm just gonna go back to working for someone like in the office, like 9 to 5. So they were just like, oh well, yeah, it's good you quit your job, but when are you gonna go back to the office? And I was like, I'm never gonna work for anyone else. I'm just like teaching Norwegian at that point. But at that point, after that, I just really never wanted to go and work for somebody else. Like, or if I were to work for somebody else, it would have to be like on my terms, which were like sky high at that point. So yeah.
I feel like entrepreneurs, they can sometimes make the absolute worst employees.
Yeah.
Right? Because they may have a really great understanding of how to run the business and like having the long view, but they may not be wanting to be there at certain times and all the freedoms that you have to give up.
Especially after the experience that you have as an entrepreneur, to go back and work for somebody else and be like, no, I don't think you should run your company like that. That could be like a big problem. So I totally understand. I think you should work for somebody else until you get your own experience as being your own boss, because that changes a lot. I'm pretty sure I'll be the worst employee because I probably would not be okay with a lot of things people are doing in their companies.
Yeah, so you hit on a couple things there that I think a lot of people can identify with. So one of the things is that risk aversion, and then everyone around you sort of looking at you like you're crazy, and like even feeling like pity or sad for you, like you don't know what you're doing with your life. You need to be laying the groundwork for your retirement and your career and stuff like that. You're losing out on all this time, and so it can then lead to feeling kind of alone in the space. Did you struggle with that at all?
Oh yeah, totally. Like first of all, like my biggest shock was that I was like just at home, like after 8 years of going to the office, like wearing, power suits and stuff like that, like high heels. I was just kind of at home alone and I didn't know what to do. It was like before working from home was cool. So it was like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago. And then I would just like I'm not a depressed person. Like I'm very optimistic. I'm very, like I'm social, me, and I like talking to people. I'm a happy person.
Yeah,
But
for
like
sure.
at that point, I started getting like super, super depressed, and I would not change my clothes. I don't think I even showered every day because it was just like I don't know, like every day was like a rat race for me. It's like, it was so weird. And I remember it was November, it was raining. I was in my pajamas like for like a week and I just could not like get out, get just like back to my normal life. I could not like snap out of it. That was the biggest problem. And I was being severely depressed like for the next like 2 or 3 months. And that
Yeah.
was probably like one of the hardest time in my life because my personality and my body also I think was not ready for that transition. It came as such a big shock. It was just like so super severe. And it's very interesting what you said like about like people think you're crazy and like I didn't want to tell other people what I'm gonna do in my life because they
Right.
would then kind of stop you and be like, whoa, what are you doing? And I just watched Sarah Blakely. She was the owner of Spanx before she sold it now, and a very inspiring woman, billionaire. And what she did is like she never told anyone for her Spanx idea for a whole year until it went into manufacture because then it was already done. Because what she said is that if I told this to anyone, they would stop me. They would say I'm crazy. They'll just like, what do you mean, like something you wear under your pants so you can look good. So she was like, I knew people would be like, start asking questions. So I decided to shut it down and not tell anyone. And I definitely think also that like tons of $1 million ideas or amazing ideas for companies have been killed this way. So don't tell anyone about like what you're doing
Yeah.
until you're absolutely sure that like you can answer all the questions and you're like, I'm just gonna do it. Or if you're like super confident that you're gonna do that and you don't care what everybody else says, then it's fine. But I'm sure that a lot of people are very insecure about their ideas and how they're going to pursue whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. And I, oh my gosh, I had that same experience. Like when I started my business, it was my first business. Then that was I didn't tell anyone. I was married at the time as well, and I didn't I didn't say anything. I was like,
Oh
oh
my
my
God.
God. So but obviously I had to talk to him after a few days of doing this and it seemed to be working. Everyone else though, I waited an entire year before I called myself a CEO or a business owner or an entrepreneur even.
Right.
Entrepreneur might have taken longer to dub myself. But I want to ask, what was it in November? You were saying you had this pivotal moment where you were just really down. What was it that got you out of that? Because that's a really tough spot to be in, and that can sometimes just feed on itself, and you kind of just stay there. Like that's a really tough
Right.
one to get out of.
Well, honestly, it was a very low moment in my life because I mean, this might sound crazy, but at the point I thought I was going crazy because I remember I was watching Shutter Island with Leo DiCaprio, and it was like such a like a weird movie. You don't know like what's right, what's happening, what's like what are this hallucinations, like you don't know what's real, what's not. And I remember I watched the movie like it was like 1 a.m. in the morning because also like my sleeping schedule was like completely
Right.
non-relevant to me. I don't think I even slept a lot.
Hmm.
So after that point, I went like I just wanted to kind of iron my shirts at like 3 a.m. in the morning after the movie. And I started ironing my shirts and I started talking with myself. I just went, oh, look at this shirt, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of started having a conversation with myself. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? Because at that point, like I haven't gone out from my house for like 3 weeks. I
Hmm.
haven't had any interactions with the outer world. I would order food. It was so bad. And I was just kind of started talking with myself and I was just like, whoa, like what are you doing? It was just like, okay, you've hit the rock bottom of your life right now. And now it's like, it's all uphill from there, basically. So the next morning, I woke up and I'm like, you're gonna put on some makeup and you're gonna change that pajamas you've been like in for the last 3 weeks. And so I put on some clothes and I put on some makeup and I opened my computer and I had this Norwegian lesson, but I felt so much better about myself. And after that, I started going to the grocery store by myself and like back. So there's like baby steps, right? But
Yeah.
it was like very big for me because like no matter how, it's like going to the gym, like you can go to the gym for like 3 years in a row, but then if you skip your workouts for like 2 weeks, you're just like back in like where you were like before the gym, right? So my life was like, wow, I'm going to the outer world. It's just like for 3 weeks, I've completely like canceled all of my habits or anything I've had like with real world and forgot how it feels like. So like I just had to kind of hit the rock bottom when I kind of, started, being myself again. As I said, like it was all uphill from there because there was like no way, there was no other way basically. So I kind of pulled myself together and I like wore this makeup and I was like teaching and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy my domain. I don't care. Like I didn't have an idea, anything. I just knew it was gonna be something that has to do with languages. And I'm like, I'm just gonna buy the domain. I don't care, but I just have to do it so I know that something has changed. So I just go and buy the domain name. And I remember I was talking to my mom and she gave me idea for the name. It was like an acronym from like YLT, stood for Jana Linguist Team at that point. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, I'm just totally gonna use it. So without doing any research, nothing, I'm supposed to be a person who knows a lot of SEO. I did nothing to just kind of, do a small research about if that name is connected with something else or not. So I immediately just bought the domain name and I was like, okay, this is it. I am now the domain owner. And, let's just figure out like how I'm going to build the theme, and I'm going to buy like a free theme for the website. And I can pretty much do a lot of things in WordPress myself. Then you ask your friends to help you out. You have the developer friend, you have the graphic designer friend, and put your minds together and build me something. I'll pay you, I don't know, like in 6 months or something like that. How it goes, like when you were living on a budget, but it was crazy. It was everything was like it was not done the right way, to say the least. Especially because my domain name, the YLT, first, one of the first things I got on my website was this chatbot, and I would answer the questions. I mean, I didn't get any questions, but sometimes I would. But all the questions I got were related to the Bible. It was like, what does Matthew say to Luke and blah, blah. And I was like, what sort of question is that? And I got like tons of questions like those. And it was then when I did a little research, I typed YLT Translations, and I got the Young Literature Translation of the Bible. For the first 3 pages, it was the Bible. And I was like, okay, it's like me versus God in this chapter of my life.
I was going to win that SEO.
Like, yeah. And I'm like, could this be like, and then I read my bio and it says like, like an expert in SEO. And I'm like, this is so bad. Just because I really needed a change, like quick change. I didn't care about anything. And then it took me like, I think like 7 months to kick out the Bible from page 1. So now we don't have those, problems anymore. But that was like, that couple of chat, messages. It was like, why are people so interested like in the Bible quotes and like getting those translated? Just a couple of sentences. So that was not a joyride at the beginning. But I mean, I quickly, figured out that, I need an SEO team. I need like stuff like that. I was very well connected to a lot of people that worked in my previous job. They were experts in e-commerce field. So they kind of helped me put together my website the way it's supposed to be. And I asked 3 or 4 translators if they could, like, if I have a project with them, I would call them, and then if they would like to work, I wouldn't at that point, I would never say, do you want to work for me? Because I was too, kind of embarrassed. It was like very uncomfortable for me to say that. So I would say like, would you come in and work with me in my little, agency? And it's so weird because like my previous in my previous job, I was boss to like 400 people, and I had like authority, and I could make, decisions. I'd be like, no, let's do this. It's not blah, blah, blah. But once you start your own thing, it doesn't really matter what sort of experience you had. because it's, you're like embarrassed by doing anything, you know, like I will be just like grateful that people said yes to work for me, even though they would, you know, get paid for that. But there was like,
Right.
oh my God, somebody wants to work for me. And it was like, you know, and then it was like, let's do the KPIs and blah, blah. And then I remember like one of the most important things was like to do OKRs, where you put like your, you know, vision like for your company. And I was just gonna put like, my vision was like, I want to have like 10 clients a month, you know, my like OKRs for like that year. And then every week I would just go back to OKRs and see I've not like achieved anything. And then one day I was just like, no, like I have to have a bigger vision. Like you have to have a bigger vision. Like 10 clients per month, it's not like your big vision for the year. It could be like for this month, but for the year or whatever you want this company to go, you have to have a big vision. So I put like, I still have that OKR till this day. And I put like, we're gonna be the biggest and most famous Amazon translation agency till this day, bam. And then I was like, oh my God, you know, am I, like, was I allowed to write that? Like, am I allowed to kind of manifest something like that? I was just like, really, I would not show this to anyone, because I was like, people are gonna be thinking I'm crazy, or like I'm just gonna, like, how do I have the nerve to put something like that? And I don't know, like a year and a half later, I literally just, you know, all those OKRs was like, you know, check, 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 check. And then I started, you know, speaking at conferences, and like, you know, one thing led to another. My first ever gig, like speaking gig, was super, super insanely hard to get. And I remember in those also OKRs, I put like, you know, speaking at Prosper as my like life, you know, ultimate goal when it comes to, you know, speaking and presenting my company, which actually happened in July this year. And I remember
That's
like one of my first
amazing.
conferences. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like I still cannot believe till this day that, you know, things like that happened. And then for my first conferences, like first, you know, videos of whom I could record for someone, I remember I reached out to Augustus from Orange Click. He's pretty big in Europe. And I'm like, let's just start with Europe. And then, you know, I had a call with him, and he was like, YTL, YL, I cannot even pronounce it. What is that? Like, what does it have to do with Amazon? And then and I was like, well, it does. And he was like, well, what does YLT stand for? And in that split of a second, I was like, it stands for Your Listing Translations. And I was like,
Hey.
ta-da! And I was like, I don't know how I pull it off. And he was like, interesting. And then he said no to me like 4 times. And I had this discussion with him like 2 years ago when I spoke at his conference again. And he said no to me like 4 times. And I was just like, I can't believe this. But like if living in the States taught me something, that's like that you should not give up. And then when they close your door, you come and knock again, and they will eventually open it because you're so persistent. So basically perseverance is everything. This is what I've also learned. So like after the 5th call, he was like, oh, okay, let's do a video. Let's just see what you got. So we did like this 8-minute video. I was so nervous. I had it all like scripted, like on paper, like written in paper. I was like reading it, and I probably sounded like a robot. But that video went so well. We got the first clients from that. And Augustus liked it so much that he invited me to his first live ever conference, the European Seller Conference in Prague, in 3 months. And I said like, yes, I can do it. So for me, like the less I overthink my decisions in terms of like speaking and doing something, the better for me, because I just said like, yes, I'm gonna do it. You know, I'm just gonna speak in front of like 300 people. And then as the date came closer, I was just like, how the hell am I supposed to speak in front of 300 people? Because I don't even believe in what I'm doing after like 3 months, you know? And but I was just like, I said yes. So, you know, it's like saying yes to everything got me to a lot of places, you know. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are think the same direction. Is like, you know, you say kind of yes, and then you'll figure it out, you know. Exactly, and this is also what I've been doing. Like, you know, you say yeah. I mean, of course, if it's not completely like delusional, then you say no. But if I see like a fragment of that happening, I'm gonna be like yes, and then excuse me, I'll figure it out. I also like accepted to speak in Denmark in front of the Danish Chamber of E-commerce in Danish. They're like, do you speak Danish? I'm like, yes, I do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have like a talk in Danish. And I was like, what did they say? It's like, oh, that's amazing. You should like be our guest. And so I went there and I spoke in Danish. I was just like, I'm just gonna do it. And I couldn't believe I did it like till this day. And it was just an amazing experience. But this all, I'm saying all of this because I was not someone who had like several serial businesses before that, or I was not a public speaker. I was basically ambitious. I was always ambitious my whole life, but I never strived to do anything on my own. And then like literally during like, I don't know, like during like just random 2 years of my life, I came up with the idea that I can do something because I was inspired by my ex-boss, and I always also love to be inspired by what people do, because that will maybe maybe you want to try some of that someday, and that's going to tell you that you are capable of doing great things. And I just think that you don't have to be like this exceptional human being. I just think that you have to have a very big vision that you can manifest, and then you can work towards it and be very, very persistent. And this will lead you where other people's won't be, because a lot of people don't have the perseverance. A lot of people will give up after the first problem, or because they did not hit the milestone. They're like, oh, this is no good. So whatever helps people. I mean, people listen to motivational speakers, they go to like therapists, they meditate, like whatever helps. Like everyone is doing it. Like if you don't think that Gary Vee is not doing any of the self-help things, I'm pretty think that's not that's a common misconception, that all of these insanely successful people don't have their doubts and problems and stuff like that, because I think they also deal with all of that on a different scale, of course.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I think it's easy to look at people who go up on stage and say, this is the right mindset, this is the thing, and to then assume that they always have that mindset, and that they're just walking around like, oh, you're so lucky, you can just sit in that happy mindset and that motivated space all the time. And that's not the case. It's just that that's when they're presenting stuff. That's when they're on stage,
Exactly. And you don't know their problems. You don't know what they're dealing with like at that point. Like what you see is just like a facade. Like if I'm gonna present myself to someone as like super awesome person, then I cry myself to sleep every night. I mean, you don't know what people are dealing with. So, whatever you think of a person, you don't know what they're like going through, either like good or bad, so it always has to be like taken with a little bit of like pinch of salt with that. So,
yeah. Well, so that really covers quite a bit. So we started with, your parents, and then how you got into entrepreneurship, and we've come into like how you transitioned from your first idea for YLT. And so how has that changed from that first moment to what it is today? And then tell me about what you guys do.
Right. So we've grown immensely throughout the last almost 3 years now, and I still can't believe how big we've become and what we have achieved. And like, I don't know, maybe like 2 years ago, I would be ashamed to speak about that in public. But now I'm really proud. Like, I'm really proud with my whole team and everything that we're doing. And I can say that, there's like a lot of effort from everyone, definitely. And when you make such a big team, it's really important that who, like everyone who were a part of that you should also thank them, and that they should appreciate your employees, and you should remember their birthdays or whatever. You should feel special, and you should let them know that they're doing an amazing job. That's something that's really, really something that I cherish. Basically everything that I didn't have it with my ex-employee, I'm trying to implement in my business. So it was just an incredible thing how we just kind of grew from like 4 people to 82 right now, and they're like everybody's like in-house. And like I know a lot of people say they have like teams, they have like dedicated freelancers, and they have like 5 or 6 people. But when you grow, I think that like everyone can grow their team for till like they hit like 15 team members or like 20, and then there's a bottleneck. And then people just maybe go on to start a new company, but they don't scale this one. So I don't know, thanks to the management skills I've learned in my previous job, I think that I was really good at people management. So we could grow the team. But I think I was also very, very lucky with the team that I had, because like 80% of the team has been with us ever since they got hired. Some of them were here like for all 3 years, and it's absolutely incredible. And I couldn't be like grateful like enough for those people that have been with me for like the past 3 years. And I always just, make sure that that these people know how grateful I am for
Yeah.
everything that they're doing and all of that. So when I come and think like how it all started, like with 3 years and like everyone saying no with only 4 people, they're just gonna escalating to basically being present everywhere. Like also like, I could never imagine that I would be speaking at like conferences in the States. And that was, basically we spent this whole year in the States. And now I kind of somehow feel like more as a part of like the US community than European community now,
Oh, that's
because everything
interesting.
was happening. Yeah, and like all of my friends and like my best friends are like in the US, and and then we see each other like all the time, and it's so wonderful to just kind of become like this citizen of the world, through your business, and to get an opportunity to travel. And I mean, people on my Instagram, they are probably wondering like, do I ever work, but I'm not a person that's gonna like post like like my computer and be like, now it's time to work. I just post like all the after parties and stuff like that, and when we hang out, and
Yeah.
but it's been an incredible ride. And what I'm really grateful for is that now I'm not embarrassed to admit that I have a successful business. Because like if you ask me on a podcast like 2 years ago, I'd be just like, well, yeah, we are. I mean, we are kind of small. I hope that we could grow big. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. Nobody wants
Yeah.
a business owner who sounds like that.
Yeah.
Nobody, And so I'm really happy that my confidence kind of grew, because I was severely underconfident person. And if I could grow my confidence, I think that everyone can, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's just something that you practice. It's not something, you don't have to be born with it. You could be like a natural born leader, but you don't have to. It's all experience and it's all practice. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah. What do you think the difference is? Because I know some people try and have that, they try and build confidence. I would say that
Right.
maybe the difference between, there's a couple problems. Some people will lean into like conceit instead of confidence, and some will lean into, sort of talking down to people so that they feel more confident.
Right. Yes.
What do you think is the differentiating marker between, actually successfully feeling confident and trying to put it on,
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, because I think a lot of people who look down on people are just gonna go, like when you don't know what to do and then you just gonna do the extreme of it, because you have no idea like what's the middle like mellow tone you should use. So I just think that people who are like looking down on people, they could be, maybe like they could be like, maybe they don't know what they're doing, they're just trying to cope with the moment, and then maybe they will be better in time. Or B, they're just assholes, and I just think that and a lot of people who look down on people, these other people who this person talks to, they're just like, they don't react or whatever. But for instance, like I would always tell someone like, why are you so condescending, like why are you doing that? Because like I think this is actually what people do to protect themselves. They have like this like harsh presentation of themselves, so everybody thinks that they're like, ooh, like they're like so super successful and scary. But I think that exactly people like these are very uncomfortable and are very underconfident, and this is the way how they kind of overdo it in order to kind of mask their real self. And I mean, you can see this in all other aspects of our life, like the girl that hasn't had that many boyfriends gonna act like she's like this like Audrey Hepburn of the movie, whatever, but then actually she has no experience, but she wants to pretend as she has. And a lot of people pretend in order to kind of persuade themselves of like what they are. But I mean, this has to come with a certain like limit to it, of course. I mean, you don't want to speak with persons like that. And I just think that, for instance, like in our community, like in the Amazon space, I think a lot of people, I mean, most of the people are like really kind of down to earth. And when somebody is like condescending, they're usually kind of excluded from the crowd, the company. It's just like, really honestly, because this is like, most of the people are not like that. And most of the people will help you. And you have a problem, they will try to find a solution for you. And that's why I really like our community so much, because I've had so many wonderful people on my side to help me, and I love to talk about some of my challenges, and personal and business wise, because I just think that people just really want to help you, and nobody wants to be this condescending bitch.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it can go there very easily depending on, who you're talking to, how you're presenting yourself.
Yes,
And it
absolutely.
might
Yeah.
even come from a sincere place, I feel like, but you just don't know, like you haven't developed that confidence yet. So it's sort of maybe walking this line between, do I present myself as confident when I don't feel it? So it comes off a little conceited or arrogant or
Right.
condescending, or do I say, oh, I hope I can grow my business to be awesome later? That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it should be like somewhere in between. I know that's difficult because I was like first just like being like, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough. Do I believe in myself at all? What am I doing? But then it kind of, I personally don't think I kind of ever went to the other extreme, like, talking about people. But I just think that how I built it myself was like, organically, I just kind of exposed myself more and more and more and more. And of course, we got like tons of results.
Yeah.
And then, it's kind of hard to be confident when you have like bad results, right? That doesn't make any sense. But like if you were like work hard and you get good results, you have every right to build your confidence. There's nothing good in being confident, and people will not think you're an asshole. People are just gonna be like, you have the right to say that you're successful. If you are, not, of course, not overdo it, but like just gonna say like, yes, we have good results, but not like, well, we have good results now, but maybe, I don't know, hopefully we'll have them, also next month. That's like it's completely different. And I see a lot of people who are new in the business having the same problem as I am, and I think that's pretty normal. But my message to them would be just kind of keep on practicing and like expose yourself and just kind of put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. For me, those situations were speaking gigs, like going on stage, or like just even like podcasts or webinars. Like everything was a huge everything was like such a big deal for me, like every single one, and then one day you would just kind of walk on the stage. That was what I was going for ever since I actually hired for my first ever speaking gig. I actually hired a public speaking coach, like who would like tell me what to do and blah blah. And I had like a couple of sessions with him, and he was amazing. And I was like, wow, that's such a good idea. And of course I could not implement it, any of it, because like I was just like speaking like a robot. But I could pull it off from the beginning to the end. I said what I said, and that was it. And then I remember like all these like TED Talks and like all the other stuff, how people just the speaker, they're just gonna walk. You're just gonna walk on the stage, like just go left, and then you're just gonna go right. And the first time I did that was like when I was in Prosper, and I had like this little pink suit, and I was just like, and I like practiced a lot, like my talk, and I knew it by heart, but it sounded very, natural. It didn't sound like I was a robot. And then at one point I was just like saying something, and then like the other part of my brain was like, I'm gonna walk right now. I'm just gonna take a little stroll like on the stage and back. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm just like having this like a separate conversation in my head with myself, and just like speaking about like keywords and stuff like that on stage. And I just kind of go and I walk like back and forth and like look at at the floor and like stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I've done it. It took me like 2.5 years, but I'm like, I walked on the stage, and I was like, and it's like it was like Prosper. It was not like this like a small meetups somewhere, I don't know, like in Germany. It was like in Prosper, like in Vegas, and I was like so happy that I could do that. And that you get in that stage of confidence that you can actually control your hands and your legs, because whenever I used to talk, it would be just like I would just like I would not like move my whole arms. I would just gonna move my hands, like I was just gonna do like this, but I would not know I was doing that because I was completely just like
paralyzed.
I was just like,
at that point you're like, I want to remember all the things I want to say.
Exactly. So, and I just think that you just need to practice, and you need to also, kind of build that trust in yourself. And also like, don't be afraid of like, talking to anyone who you think might help you. And because I know a lot of people don't have them in them. I didn't have it. but I build it. I'm from this point, I'm just super, I'm super sure that you can build basically everything. You can reinvent yourself. You can rebuild your life. You can reassemble everything that fell apart. And that's it, 100%.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. That's such a good note for us to wrap up with as well. Because I got to say, I agree with you 100%. The between arrogance and conceit and confidence, I think really the differentiation is experience and having it go well and building. It's actually an organic process where you're building confidence, and it's not, because otherwise you're forcing it, and that's why it seems so thin and so shallow, because it is. It's a propped up house. And when you look around the back, it's just it's a ghost town, and it's not real. A foundation. So I think you're totally on point. I love the way that you explain that. And I think that your advice to people who are trying to build that confidence in themselves, starting a business, or in, reaching new things that they want to do, reaching new goals, and even stating the goals, right? Because that's tricky to make an audacious goal and just be like, oh, am I even allowed to, can I have the nerve to say this out loud or put this on a board? What if I don't achieve it? What if people judge me for reaching for the stars and I don't make it?
Exactly. And people will judge you probably. So you should probably not tell this to anyone. But I mean, for your vision, like if your vision is like, I want to go to Mars, like, I mean, people go to the moon for like $450,000 now. So what makes you think that like in 5 years we will not be going to Mars? I'm saying that like, no goal is too big, honestly, and no vision is too big, because I really think that, as long as you manifest that and you kind of brainwash yourself into like, okay, I'm going to do it, or this is going to happen to me. This is exactly what will happen, but not just because like the universe will send you this, but because you will be going in that direction. You will be working towards that direction, and you will attract things like that, and they make you be successful.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's what we're gonna say. We're gonna leave it there, because that's perfect. Like you just like summed it up so well there. So Jana, how do people get in touch with you if they wanted to try your services, or if they just want to send you like fan mail? How do they reach you?
Oh yeah, so fan mail will be great. If you guys want to go to international marketplaces, like don't leave money on the table, increase your sales. And if you maybe have already something that's been translated and you're wondering why is it underperforming, we're happy to take a look for free. So you can reach out at Jana at YLT-translations.com, or you can send me a message on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, basically any social media.
So I would say, I mean, in my experience in this space, in the e-commerce space, your company now, I would say, is successfully the most well-known in this space for translations and stuff like that. And I think that wouldn't even be challenged. I think that there's not even a close second for competitors that I'm aware of.
I mean, there are some companies that they're doing something similar to what we do, but I think that we're so well established, and I know so many people in the space, and like when people think of translations, they think of me and think of YLT. And like ever since I started, like I just put those, like YLT has like 3 different colors. And my, this might be like my, greater vision is that when people see like these 3 colors like that they know that this is us. You know how like, different brands have different colors, and how you, like recognize them. And I'm like, well, I would love people to recognize the colors and be like, oh, this is YLT's brand. So, that's something maybe to think about for me in the future.
Yeah, I love it. And I would say, for anyone who's thinking about getting into international markets, definitely reach out to Jana and her team. There's nothing to lose. At the very least, you can get some questions answered, and maybe even, form a partnership if you're a service provider, or form a good friend, or send fan mail, how it goes.
Anything. If you guys have any questions or anything that you're maybe doubting, I know a lot of people are afraid to go to international marketplaces due to VAT problems and tons of other things. Just don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to hop on a call and answer all of your questions.
All right, I love it. Thank you so much for your time, Jana. It's so really, I gotta congratulate you for how far you have come, in such a short amount of time, and, you know, really becoming the known company for this particular service. It's just so much to applaud you for. So congratulations, you are awesome. And I don't think anyone who's listening to this has any doubts about your awesomeness.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I love talking to you always. Just you know, I'll come back anytime.
Oh, I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. All right. Thank you, Jana, and thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Thank you.